My name is Peter Brinckerhoff. I do a variety of consulting and teaching on nonprofit issues around the country and overseas. I've been doing it since, well, I've been in and around nonprofits all my life. And this session is based on the book of the same title, one of about 8 books that I've got out on nonprofit management. I also teach at Kellogg at the Business School at Northwestern in nonprofit management. In living in Springfield, Illinois for 30 years before I now live just south of Roanoke. But for 30 years was a 23-year of those 30 subscriber to the Illinois Symphony Orchestra, and had 2 kids that played with the youth orchestra in Springfield, and now attend the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra on a regular basis. I live about an hour from there. So I really care about what you guys do. Love performing arts, love performing events, and I'm awful pleased to be asked to be here with you to talk about this today. The generation thing is not something that just vexes nonprofits. It is not something that just shows up in the performing arts in nonprofits. It's something that affects all parts of society, and whether it's nonprofits, for-profits, government, military, doesn't matter. And if there is one thing, I'll start with the takeaway at the beginning of the session. There's one thing I want you to walk out of here with. It's the understanding that the different generations that we are working with now, that all of us are one generation, right? If you're 2 generations, put your hand up. Okay, I didn't think so. All of us are one generation or the other, that our perspective is one of many, and that the different generations meet all the sociological criteria of being different cultures. So while we pride ourselves in being culturally competent, while we pride ourselves in being culturally diverse, we often just think of different generations as just young people and old people. And it's not people that are the same, but they're just young and old. No, they're different cultures. And the sociologists talk about this all the time in terms of what the characteristics are, and our generations meet them. And this afternoon, what I want to do is walk you through some of the different generational perspectives and give you a couple of examples of why they vary so much, and then go through some trends that occur and that are generationally different, and then end the afternoon or the hour that we've got together to talk about things you can do about this, and how hopefully you can work with this issue and the opportunity. It's both a problem and an opportunity, like so many other things. The second slide in your handout, and if you don't have the handout, it's still your second slide, is how to get a hold of me after today if you have a question before you even go, oh, well, that's fine. It's free. When we get done at 5:45, I am going to go out that door extremely fast because I have a very fast plane to catch. I hope the plane's fast. I hope I'm fast to get to the plane. And so I won't be able to answer questions afterwards. So if you have questions that you want answered now or 6 months from now or a year from now about this, send me the email. It's free. I will get back to you. It is not a problem. I always enjoy hearing from folks and helping you with whatever issue vexes you on this, because this is vexing. For us, while other parts of society are challenged with this, we come at this as nonprofits with less resources. We come at it with less money, with less staffing, with less cash in hand, less ability to work around, less levels of administration, a variety of other things. So that's why in focusing on this, you see it in so many ways, both for patrons, for staff, for volunteers, for donors. It affects us across that spectrum. All right, so first we're going to talk about the different generations, who they are just a little bit, because most of you know most of this. And for each of these generations, I'm going to ask you, and this is hard because it's the end of the day, and you're tired, and you've been to lots of sessions, and you had probably a wonderful lunch, and the last session you may have napped a little bit, because that's what your body told you to do. That's okay. Maybe you're not napping. Maybe you are napping now. I'm going to ask you a question that you have to answer for us to move on about technology. But you'll see what I mean when we get there. The first generation that we'll talk about today is the greatest generation, named by Tom Brokaw's fabulous book on the same subject. This generation is waning in numbers just because tick, 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 because of time. But we still have them present in our patrons. We still have them present in our volunteers and our donors. They are a very important part of society and have always been and continue to be. If you want to bring them with you as a volunteer or a donor or an employee, the key for them is, I want to be small cog in a big machine. Okay? So don't just say that please come and volunteer for us at the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra. Come with us at the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra, and we are part of a national, international association of symphonies and choruses who do wonderful work in the arts across the country. Oh, okay. The bigger, the better. Small cog, big machine. Okay. Now, for each generation, I'm going to ask you the same question. To name the technology that most affected and differentiated the formative years of the generation. Formative years of the generation are between 15 and 25 years old. Now, obviously, when you have people born in 1901, by the time the last person was born, what? First people were out of college. I mean, it's a big number, right? It's a big range. But in general, most of these were bell curves, and they peaked around the middle. So that 15 to 25-year-old age group of formative years is pretty easy to identify. So for the first generation, the greatest generation, what would have been the transforming technology? Automobile, not quite yet. Telephone, radio, airplane. Anybody want to guess television? Okay, you are the first group never to do that. Somebody always says television. The next generation comes up, they go television. The next generation they go up. I would say, wait, it's going to come up. You know, sort of. Okay, it was. Anybody want to guess one more time? Rural electrification. 1935, only 20% of the population had electricity 24 hours a day. When we say rural, anybody here from Chicago? Chicago, okay. Electricity in Chicago in 1935 stopped at the city limits, not the county limits. Okay? Cook County was rural. Okay? City limits was it. And same thing in New York City. It stopped at the borough's edge. Didn't go outside the boroughs. New Jersey, not completely dark, but in many cases, you know, we don't think of it that way. My mom was a farm girl from Connecticut, not Kansas, and she got electricity on her farm 2 days before she went to Pembroke, 1941, to college. Pembroke now being Brown, but in those days it was Pembroke. And she said, great, now I get to leave because now we have electricity. That's terrific. What happens when you have electricity? You can read later at night. You can listen to the radio. You can do a lot of things that the generator had to do. And if the generator, this is more, it brought us closer together. It made the world a little smaller. Okay. Silent generation. Raised in the shadow of this sort of omnipresent group of people, much the way Gen X raised in the shadow of baby boomers. When you work with these folks, again, and I stereotype when I talk about any group of people, but I'm doing it for good reason, because again, there's a lot of good data on this. These folks found something that was very important to them. Okay? So when you want to connect with them, you are going to find the people that are the most passionate volunteers in this group are going to be the ones who care deeply about music for performing arts for some reason. It might be in their family, it might be a family history of it, it might be their own personal passion, maybe they're a musician themselves, whatever it might be. And it might be that my parents have been volunteers for this orchestra for 4 generations. Okay, good, but whatever it is. In my parents' case, it wasn't the symphony, it was people with disabilities. My sister was profoundly retarded, and they formed the very first association for retarded citizens in the United States. First state association about 3 years later. By the way, 60% of the nonprofits in the country formed by these 2 generations. Okay? See a problem? Fix it. Right? And so these groups did. If you want to work with this group, why is this important to them? Why is what you do important to them? Is performing arts important, or is music education for kids in the community important? Is classical music important, or what's the issue for them, which means you have to do a lot of asking? What's the technology change for these people? Wait. Try it again. Well, yeah, but as a cultural change, yeah. What? Radio and sound motion pictures. They're all good guesses. And in fact, all of the things you are saying are right. The big one was the rise of the private automobile. In 1947, 80% of the roads in the United States were gravel or dirt. 80%. 1947. In 1947, only 10% of the American families owned a car. By 1965, 50% of the families in America owned 2. So we got more cars, we got more paved roads. We got more cars because we had more paved roads. We got more paved roads because we had more cars. Vroom, vroom, vroom. And then there was this wonderful little thing called the interstate system, which made the country smaller. My father was a civil engineer and an attorney. My mom, by the way, who went to Pembroke, worked on the Manhattan Project during World War II. She's a scientist, right? There was no place to hide at my dinner table from logic, ever. You know, with that. So, ever. Anyway, so my dad was a civil engineer. You know, the people that build bridges and roads and dams and stuff like that. And so when the, the interstate system comes to Hartford, where I grew up in West Hartford, they have this ceremony for the first 15 miles of the interstate, I-91, going from Hartford up towards Springfield, Massachusetts. And we're going to go down, not at the ceremony, but the next day, we're going to drive this thing, because there's 15, 18, whatever it was, miles with no stoplights. You know. So we get on the car, we're driving, Dad's going, wow, look at that buttress, look at this concrete, look at this, no, whoa, it's cool, all that, you know. I'm looking, like, it's nice, smooth road, I like it, you know, it's kind of okay. We turn around, drive back, I'm thinking, good, we can go home. We turn around, we drive back up again. Because it was so different. And it, again, knitted the country closer together. So silent generation, obviously, demographically, many more of this generation still in the workforce, still volunteering, still maybe in your performers. So you're working with those, but again, the motivation for here is the key issue. Then we get to talk about boomers, which is a good thing, because those of us who are boomers love talking about boomers. All of you who are Gen X and younger than that go, yes, you do. We wish you'd be quiet. So the key for boomers, there's an interesting differentiation between boomers and everybody else because of, again, where we are in our age cycle. And many of us 2 or 3 years ago thought we were going out the door, right? And then things changed. But we weren't going to go out the door to play golf. We were going out the door to another job. If you look at the literature pre-recession for boomers, it wasn't, what are you going to do when you retire? It was, what are you going to do in your second career? Boomers define themselves through work. We always have. You'll see in a few slides, I say, boomers, live to work. Everybody younger than us, work to live. And it's a huge, huge dividing line. It's a very bright dividing line between the generations. So what's happening with these people also goes to our collective memory of the 60s. And I've talked to literally thousands of boomers who say this because they're doing this. 150,000 boomers every 3 months are leaving private industry, the military, and government after doing their 20 or 25 or 30 years. And they're coming to charitable organizations, yours and all the others, to work, not to volunteer, but to work. And they may be bus drivers or receptionists, or they may be executive directors. And they share the same mantra. I saved the world in the 60s. I had a life. I want to get back and do something that matters. Okay? So what you say to them is, come change the world with us. Come change the world with us again. Come back and do it again. You did it once, save the world again. And remember, all of us as boomers, in our collective memory, we were all at Woodstock together. It was very crowded. All 88 million of us. We were all at Woodstock those 3 days. So, you know, it just, this really resonates with people in this age group. What's the technology change for this group? Television. Television with, everybody look up, this many channels. Right? ABC, CBS, NBC, and if you lived in an urban area, PBS. If you're in Chicago, you had WGN. You know, in New York, there was a, yeah. So 4 or 5 channels and no remotes, which is why we were thinner, because we had to get up, change the channel, and say, right? But television was a convening place. Now it is entertainment. Then it was a convening place. It is impossible. Well, I won't say impossible. I think it's impossible. It is very difficult to find a boomer who doesn't remember the wonder of on Sunday evening watching Disney's Wonderful World of Color, because it was the only channel that was on in color. The only TV was on. And that one night a year, that magic one time a year where we all gathered around the television to watch. Did you hear? The Wizard of Oz, right? And the next day, on buses and in offices and in schools, we were off to see the wizard. Because we did it all together. Now, on a much more serious note, historians and sociologists of the 60s will tell you that we wouldn't have made the social progress we did at the speed we did without television. We would not have had the Civil Rights Act if people hadn't seen protesters being attacked by dogs in Selma. We would not have been out of the war when we were if Dan Rather hadn't brought the war to us home every night through Walter Cronkite, because we were all watching one TV network for our television news. Or 2 or 3, but it was all there, right? We would not have had the other social change if we hadn't experienced it through television, as opposed to being some disparate part of the world. It was in our living room. Huge transformative change. Most boomers can remember when they didn't have a TV in their home. Almost all boomers can remember when they didn't have a color TV in their home. Okay, and so that's, again, the technology thing is when you remember when it wasn't. Okay. Gen X. Ooh, totally worthless trivia for you. What's the X stand for? If I say Gen X, you say Gen X, we know what we're talking about. But you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know what the X stands for. What's the X stand for? Extraneous. Stands for nothing? Pardon me? Experimental? Some people, some Gen Xers will always say extraordinary. You know. What'd you say? 10. It's a Roman numeral. It's the 10th generation after the Declaration of Independence. So here is how you can use this. When your friends say it's Gen Y is the generation after Gen X, what do you say? It's Gen XI. Yeah, so see the takeaways you get at these conferences? It's amazing. Okay, Gen X, who are very much in the workforce and in the leadership, and hopefully on your board of directors, or in your volunteer cadre, right? Or in your donor group, let's hope. Value of independent thinking, value of their work to the organization, and the focus on work-life balance, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the room in almost all intergenerational conflict. Work-life balance is the big issue between management and staff, management and volunteers around the workplace. Okay, there's different set of work-life balance issues at home, but in the workplace, this is really huge. I'm going to give you some rules for how to deal with this. Not prevent it, because you're not going to prevent it. It's a cultural difference, but how to deal with it and work with it. Okay, then we're going to talk more about this after the next slide, but the value of independent thinking. To a boomer manager or a silent generation manager, when a Gen X person or younger sits there and goes, I got an idea, 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 I got an idea. Why do they do that? Why are they all putting their hand up? Why can't they just sit down and work? What's wrong with these people? There's a reason. And there's nothing wrong with them at all. There's a reason that we'll talk about. And it's even more accelerated with the generation that comes afterwards. Okay? Technology for this group. Computer. Unconnected computers. Standalone computers. So that when this generation was exposed to technology, it was about me, not about us. Huge difference. And this generation can remember when there weren't personal computers, when computers were all down in the basement, refrigerated with guys with pocket protectors on. That's who was taking care of it. And the next generation can't, which is a huge difference. There's a quick question here. So much smaller. Significantly smaller. We had kids later. We had kids later. It was just the boomer thing was huge. Okay. No, the birth rate dropped off dramatically. Basically what happened with the baby boom, the genesis of the baby boom was most American men were overseas or on military bases for between 4 and 6 years. They came back, they went to college, they got done with that, and they had kids all at once. Okay, and it was just boom. And the families, they got married, they may have got married overseas, but everybody waited. And then all of a sudden, boom, this huge group of, it starts in 1947. It doesn't start exactly 9 months after VJ Day, but it was pretty damn close, you know. And the institution of political, absolutely, it's changed things significantly. Very good point. Very good point. So, we know about our 10th generation now, right? Standalone computers is their technology, and work-life balance and independent thinking. Then we get to Generation Y. Oh, we know it's not Generation Y. You call them millennials, that's fine. I call them Gen At, because this is the first generation that was born digital. And it is the defining characteristic of these young people. People born after 1981 never knew a world without personal computers. They can't remember a world without the internet. They can't remember a world without cell phones. It may have been mom and dad lugging a bag phone that weighed 18 pounds, to their soccer games, but they don't remember that instant communication thing. Okay? And this is enormously important. Enormously important. Okay, so work with these people as employees, as musicians, as volunteers, as donors. You don't get just them, you get them and their network. It's them and their peers. These are group animals, not herd animals, independent thinkers. But they are incredibly comfortable in groups. They date in groups. They socialize in groups. They go to concerts in groups. They volunteer in groups. They donate in groups. Get me and you bring all my friends. I'll go and do a fundraiser for you online by texting in 45 minutes. Want me to do that? And the answer is yes. Well, you don't have much money, but I have 5,000 people on my phone. And if I get each of them to donate $5, it's better than you going after somebody for a month who gives $1,000, right? And faster. And so cool. No, okay, we're not going to get there. All right. What's the technology? Yeah, actually the book says internet. But what it really is connectivity all the time. It's connectedness to everything all the time. And when the connectivity goes down, everybody joneses out. Have you ever seen people in an airport or in an office when the BlackBerry system goes down? Well, it's that times 7. Okay? Well, we'll talk about the different way we look at tech in a minute. Challenge of doing good in the community. Fact, when you graduate from undergraduate school in the United States, you have volunteered more hours, statistically, in your life than your parents have. Doing good in the community is, again, second nature. And the need for my perspective and ideas. I got an idea. Why? Why do they do that? Why do my kids, by the way, these are our kids, so if we don't like them, it's our fault. Why do they do that? Because we taught them that way. See, when we went to school, and I'm talking now to older Gen Xers, silent generation, everybody who's a boomer in the room. Remember 2nd grade? Your teacher hands out the arithmetic test. What does she say? Mostly she. Cover your work, right? You did everything on your own. If anybody, if I showed it to Karen, that was plagiarism, and we collaborated. My God, we both failed. Now, all the projects, many of the tests, many of the exams are done in groups. My students at Kellogg all do their final project in groups. The thing that's 40% of their grade, they do it with 3 other people. And they wouldn't quite know how to operate otherwise. It's not that they're dependent, it's just that they're more comfortable with that. So all through school, here's my group. Okay? And I need to see people's name tags. So Lucinda, in my group, by the way, we've been in this group together since we were in 4th grade, all the way through middle school, all the way through high school. So, we see the same groups of people, right? So Lucinda is awesome at organization, so we let her organize everything. And how do I say? Song is really, really artistic, so we need the creative stuff, we let her do it, right? And this person here never shows up to the meeting, right? But we have to accommodate that person. So we learn how to put our hand up, we learn how to reach consensus, we learn how to have our opinion heard, because we have to work with groups. We learn how to work with people with disabilities, because we've gone to school with them all our lives. We learn how to accommodate different cultures, because we've gone to school with them all our lives. And those issues are normal for us to reach consensus. We also, if we're in undergraduate school, we're in the most high-tech place on the planet. At college, you can get everything from pizza to roommates to your professor's notes online. Okay? So we're heard by everybody. We know how to deal with all these people. We know how to drag them all with us because we can communicate with them instantly. And then we graduate and then we come to work for you. And you say, sit down. Here's your job description. Sit. Stay. And they go, I got an idea. All right. And they say, can I see the strategic plan? Why? Well, I want to know what's going on. In time. Can I see the minutes of the board meetings, the last 5 board meetings? No. Why? Because I want to go. You do? Well, can I see the budget? Oh! Cover your work. Right? It isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing. These young people were raised with the idea that every idea is a good idea until we get the best idea. And the best idea doesn't have to be my idea. We as boomer managers were raised, my idea is best because I'm boss. And it has to be best because I'm boss. Here's the key, second takeaway. If you're over 45, your job, like all other stewards of any age, is to get the most mission out the door with the resources at hand. Most of the resources in your employ are younger than you. And we need to learn how to manage that resource. We need to change our management style. And at 58, I'm 58, that's hard. It's kind of worked pretty well so far, but I got to change. Very, very, this is the thing that people in the room hate. They never make notes about that. They go, I don't want to talk about that. Nope. But it's really true. The world has changed inside the organization as well as some other ways. So really, really take that away. We as managers need to rethink how to manage our resources best. And some of our resources, many of our resources, most of our resources, an increasing number of our resources were born after we were. And besides, you say, well, I don't want to relearn. I mean, I have to ask everybody what they think. I mean, I have to listen and Lucinda's now 18 years old. I got an idea. I got to listen to her. She's 18 or 22. She doesn't have any degree. She doesn't have experience. She doesn't have any wisdom. Everybody do this. This is fun. You're going to have fun doing this. Everybody write that down. If you need help, ask the person next to you. Everybody got that? Everybody good? Everybody ready? One more line. Turn that into a 6. Take one more line. Those of you in the back may look like you're craning your necks. Write that down. Take one more line. Turn that into a 6. Everybody got it? Sure you do. 95% of adults don't get this right. Here's the answer. Actually, don't get it at all. For many years, I taught this as a think outside the box, all that synergy and brain matter and all that stuff going on. And my 6-year-old, my oldest boy, who's now 28, as a 6-year-old, comes in and taught me a better way to teach it. Ben comes in, first grader, and I'm getting ready to go out of town again. I have all my stuff spread out on the kitchen table. And he asked me what most first graders ask their parents at some point. Dad, what do you do when you leave? Well, Ben, I'm a management consultant and trainer for human service nonprofits in the United States and Canada and Europe, and I protect all my management solutions, and I teach grown-ups. Really? Like, about what? Well, about stuff where they work. Is it like school? Yeah, a little bit like school. Do you play games? First grader, right? And I had on the table, this is a generational flashback, this on a transparency. Remember transparencies? Yeah. For those of you who don't know what I just said, there was life before PowerPoint, okay? Just so you know. And so I saw the problem, and I said, yeah, here's a game we play. Oh, this is hard. 95% of adults don't get this. I'm a boomer parent. I'm going to protect my child. This is a game we play, Ben, but this is really hard. Oh, yeah, I want to try it. Ben, this is really hard. Okay. So being the boomer protective parent, I put Ben's helmet on, and his knee pads and stuff. Gave him the pen. And I said, write this down. So he does. And I say, make one more line, turn that into a 6 pen. And I will never forget the fact that he just grabbed that pen and went, look, boom. No hesitation. My brilliant child. No, first graders don't know Roman numerals. You saw this as 9. Ben saw this as X. X6, X6. What are you doing in first grade? You do 3-letter word completions. X6. You slap an S on it, you got a 6. Grown-ups can't do this, Dad? You had too much knowledge, too much experience, and too much education to solve the problem. Okay, you saw it as a math problem. Ben saw it, and all of his classmates 2 weeks later when I did the same thing with them and they all got it in 3 seconds, they saw it as a language problem. So the next time somebody who's 22 or 82 walks into you and says, I got an idea, and they don't have as many degrees as you and they don't have as many years on the job, don't do this. Every idea is a good idea until we get to the best idea. And in an economy like this, we need all the ideas. We need more neurons on the problem. And if you want to manage folks in this age group, you've got to listen to those ideas, and often they're better than yours. And that's the other ego thing that those of us as managers who were raised to always be right have to learn not to be rightist. Every idea is a good idea until we reach the best idea. Most important part of that is, and the best idea doesn't have to be my idea. Okay? And that's hard. That's really hard to relearn that. Okay, let's talk about trends. Here are trends. We're going to talk about them each individually. They show up in a variety of places in society. They show up for performing arts organizations in a number of ways we'll talk about as we walk through them. But they also show up mostly, not all of them, but mostly very differentiated by generation. The money stuff you all know about. You know the first 3 bullet points here. That's not a big deal. This one is the deal killer for getting the best and brightest into our organizations. I graduated from undergraduate school in 1974. I went to University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League institution. At the time, my dad was a corporate attorney. I cost him roughly, and my mother, roughly 10% of their income. Roughly. 10% of their pre-tax income. This last year, the median income in the United States for a family of 4 was $60,000. The cost of 1 year of a 4-year college education in the United States, when you average it all out for all the private and all the public schools, was $29,940. Basically 50% of the pre-tax income. Okay? I have students at Kellogg who come out of Kellogg having worked 2 years for Bain or 2 years for some financial organization before they, you can't apply to Kellogg right at undergraduate school. Made a lot of money, but they come out of Kellogg in debt $120,000. They can't come work for you for $50,000 or $40,000 or $30,000. Okay? That's number one. Number two is, and many of you have small staff, so this isn't a big deal. Some of you have larger staffs, it is. It's also an issue for the people that you have as volunteers and as employees who have kids in high school and college, because they're looking down the abyss. And so people who could volunteer for you a lot of hours are now going back to work because they've got to pay for the college education. Okay? Now, the recent law passed by Congress is going to help a lot. Help some, but it's a hugely important thing. My wife and I just paid our last tuition check in February. We danced till 2 in the morning. All 3 kids now off salary. It's like woo, you know. But it's a huge commitment that all of us need to make for our kids or our grandkids or our nieces and nephews. The problem for nonprofits is attracting these kids with this huge debt. It's a really big problem. Okay, next thing. Here, you know about technology. You know technology is, well, it depends on what generation you are. You know about technology. We see technology different. It is not ever going to leave us. We are not going back to the Stone Age no matter how many post-apocalyptic movies you watch. It is always going to be here, and it's going to be more omnipresent. 2 years ago, when we talked about something called Twitter, it was 2 little old ladies talking in the back of a tea room, right? Or it was 3 birds on a power line. It wasn't, you know, it just, it's going, right? The thing here is that there are a number of these trends that have pretty bright lines between generations. This one is probably the brightest. Boomers, we see technology through bifocals. It's good or bad. It's cool when it works, and when it doesn't work, it's awful. And we lock up. I've been fixing things all my life. My dad was a civil engineer, right? My son, who's a techie, Ben, the 6th kid, worked for Microsoft for a couple of years, has his own tech startup out in Boulder, and he and I do technology stuff all the time. But when the computers freeze up, I still, and Ben, last time this happened a couple of years ago, Ben got right in my face and said, Dad, car breaks, washing machine breaks, whatever, you fix it. Computer locks up, you go postal. Why? Because of this. Because we can remember when it wasn't. And we can they're still wonderful but strange. Strange but wonderful, okay? And so both of those things. So this is the way we see it, is when something new happens technologically, and younger people understand this, when something new happens technologically, it's not that you're just dragging us along, it's that we see what happens as not just cool, but cool and awful. We see it both ways when we look at it. Gen Xers, tinted lenses. Remember, they think of technology first as something that's for me, because it wasn't connected when they first saw it. So not for me as a person, but me for my organization, me for my family, me for me. But how can this work for me? And this is a good thing. Tinted glasses, rose-colored glasses, it's a good thing. But how can I make it work? The issue with Gen At, it's invisible. These people were born digital. They don't see technology. It's like oxygen. It's just there. You want to see the difference between, you know the word intuitive in relationship to technology? It's a very intuitive website. It's a very intuitive cell phone. You're right. You want to see the difference in intuitive? See somebody my age and somebody my daughter's age, she's 22, opening their cell phones in a cell phone store. Okay? About 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, Kayla and I were in the cell phone store at the same time. My cell phone, which had been 6 or 7 years old, had blown up really exploded on an airplane. Very exciting. Hers, which was 2.5 years old, had broken. It was just out of date, and it broke, Dad. I don't understand how it broke, but it broke. So I need a new one, you know. So we go into the cell phone store and get, she was so disappointed because we were getting the cheapo phones that came 2 for 1, you know. So the guy brings us the cell phones, hands them to us, and we open them simultaneously, okay. By the time I found the on button, she had downloaded all her ringtones, texted all her friends, 14 apps, and turned her cell phone into a microwave. That's intuitive. And so when we say intuitive and somebody else says intuitive, it means something different. We see things differently. Now, here's the thing. Technology is omnipresent, and technology, the younger you go, again, stereotypically, the younger you go is the default. Okay? So Lisa calls me up, and for this little demonstration, I'm 28 years old. Okay? I don't want to be again, Lisa, but I am for this demonstration. Okay? I'm 28. She says, you know, our chorus or our symphony has this awesome set of concerts coming up. They're going to be a series of them. They're really, really cool music. It's really, really, I know you like avant-garde stuff. It's very avant-garde stuff. And I really think you ought to come down. What do I do? Do I go or don't I go? Maybe. Who knows? What do I do first? Website. I will go to the website first. And if everything about those concerts that I want to find is not on that website or linked to that website, like everything about the conductor, or the composer, everything about the musicians, everything about the cost, everything about the seating chart, everything about the parking, everything about everything, where will I go next? To the telephone? No. To the dead tree version of the newspaper? No. No, I won't. I'll go someplace else. I'm done. And if Lisa says to me, well, we have this wonderful volunteer opportunity. You can come and do this and this and this and this and this. Same thing. If everything about volunteering, what I have to wear, can I come with my friends, what I have to do for training, do I have to show up sober, all that stuff, is not on the website, I'm gone. Well, we have a fund drive. Can I give online in both credit card and PayPal? Because if I can't, I'm gone. Okay, you get one shot. How many chances do you get to make a first impression? One. And it's always online if you're under 30. Always. There is no second chance. Now, those of you who are my age are going, I got to have a Facebook page. I got a Twitter. No, you don't. No, you don't. You have 25-year-old volunteers who can do it for you, and they do it like this. They're the Caitlins opening the cell phone and turning it into a microwave. Just say, here's the mission. Go do it. But you have to enable them to do it. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, that you need to have younger board members, because your board needs to have peers who are 30 years old sitting at the board table saying, this is important. We need to allocate resources for this, because we will lose 2 generations. Okay? Said it before, say it again. The future of philanthropy in the United States is in the hands of the nonprofits that can successfully merge technology and mission. You have to do this. If you don't, you lose 2 generations. And can you afford to lose everybody under 40? All those donors, all those volunteers, all those patrons, all those employees, all those musicians? No. You can't. The future of philanthropy in the United States is in the hands of the charitable organizations that successfully merge technology and mission. We will always, I hope, do live performances. We will always be in front of people. We will always, in healthcare, hug kids and feed homeless people, all that stuff. But if you don't get technology and enable technology to further your mission, you're doomed. You're just doomed. Jim Collins said in Good to Great, which I hope you've all read. If you haven't, you need to by 6 o'clock. I'll give you 15 minutes when we get done. Talks about technology. Technology is not a solution. Technology is an accelerator of a great idea. Okay? You have a great idea. It's your mission. But use that tool. Oh, my job as a steward is to use all the resources at my command to do more mission. Technology is one of those resources. And again, you don't have to get it, because we see it as good and bad. All you got to do is enable and empower your younger employees or volunteers to do it for you. Because they want to. They care about what you do. Got to let them do it. Okay? This is hugely important. Hugely important. Okay, diversity. 5th great wave of immigration. I get to say that in 3 weeks in Phoenix, Arizona. Think of me, okay? And the immigration argument really doesn't matter to us. Why? Because we serve our communities as they are. The key here for you is to remember that the diversity is becoming more diverse. Okay? It is not simply Caucasian, African American, Asian, and Latino or Hispanic. It's a whole polyglot of people from all over the world who come with their own cultural needs, issues, gifts, resources. And instead of just saying, well, we're language competent. We do our stuff in Spanish. We're fine. We have to be culturally competent. And this is across ethnicities and countries of origin as well as generation. Okay? Huge issue. By the way, other thing here is with the increasing diversification of the country ethnically, over the last 20 years, both in schools and in colleges and universities, just like people with disabilities. If you started public school after 1969, you always went to school with people with disabilities. If you started public school after 1968, you always went to school with people who look different than you. The younger you get, the more invisible this is. Okay? The less it shows up. So younger people, when somebody who's my age describes an individual as an African American man, it isn't that I'm prejudiced, it's that I see it. And I don't see it negatively, I just see it. Whereas my kids would never describe that person that way, because not that they're ignoring that individual's heritage, it's just, I wouldn't tell you they're blonde, I wouldn't tell you they've got red hair, I wouldn't tell you, you know. And that's true for lots of stuff. It's true for sexual preference, it's true for disability, it's true for lots of, we just don't see it the way and again, is it better or worse? That's up to you to decide. But it is, and we have to make sure that we understand those lines. This also shows up in family, okay? Multiracial families, step families. And as more and more families become, I love that term, non-traditional. We're rewriting what tradition is. The new normal is really showing up in families. We have to be aware of a couple of things generationally. And the first and the most important of these is, for you now, is this thing. We live further apart every generation from our families. What this shows up with for volunteer-based organizations like yours is this. Now, you may live in a town where your great-grandparents were born, great-great-great-grandparents settled, born, died, and every generation since then has lived there. There are still many Americans that do that. But the percentage decreases regularly. It decreases because of the still very cheap cost of travel and because of the very cheap cost of this and this. Okay? When Caitlin, the cell phone girl, was her junior year in college, she did 6 months in New Zealand for her semester abroad. And one of the go or no-go decisions was Skype, because she could talk to her parents and her boyfriend, or her boyfriend and her parents, and her boyfriend, and anyway, for free. All right? When my wife and I lived apart, well, the year we were engaged, she was in Louisiana, I was in Illinois, we could talk 10 minutes a week because of something called long distance, which everybody under 30 does not even know what it was. I mean, that's like from here to the back of the room, right? That's a long distance, right? Right? So we live further apart. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means a couple things. For your employees, if you have two-income households or single parents with family that lives more than 100 miles away, when stuff breaks in their life, kid gets sick, car breaks, they get sick, stuff happens, they have no support group there. Okay, and you need to help them work that through. Same thing with volunteers. Okay, second part about this is because parents grow up here, okay, I settle in Hartford, or in my case in Illinois, and all my kids move away. All right, if I stayed there and I was a volunteer for the Illinois Chamber Orchestra for 20 years, where am I going to move eventually? To where my grandkids are. Okay? And so you lose long-term volunteers because they move to be where their family is as they age. Now, I'm on the national board of Goodwill. All right? I also do a lot of work with Red Cross and with YMCAs. They have formed networks where one organization hands off volunteers to the other. So the Seattle Goodwill will hand off a volunteer to the Tampa Goodwill when that volunteer moves to Tampa and say, here's the Goodwill, get in touch, all those things. You all might think about doing something like that here because you have this issue. Okay? You have people who are moving away. And it's something that the two national associations represented in the room could do. You could facilitate that pretty easily. Okay? So, anyway, family stuff. Me branding. This is all about customization. And although this increases in demand as people get younger, it's not really just a young person's issue. Boomers, have it your way at Burger King. Remember that? All right? That was the first time we were able to go to a retail place and decide, no, I don't want it this way, I want it this way. And it was the end of the world. Because everything's been customized since then. How many people have iPods in the room? Okay? Probably 90% of the music is different all around the room, right? And again, I'll pick on Lisa. If Lisa and I worked together 10 years ago in an office, pre-iPod, 12 years ago, pre-iPod, we listened to each other's CD player across the little border between them, and we had to talk about the music. If I didn't like hers or she didn't like mine, now, If you still get your news through cable news, you have one of four choices, all of whom will tell you, you're right. Right? CNN, MSNBC, Fox, Comedy Central. Right? They'll all tell you, you're right. So we can customize news, we can customize music, we can customize tomato soup. There are 14 flavors of tomato soup. It's tomato soup. My wife told me recently that they now have 10 different varieties of wheat thins. That's wrong. That's just not right. Okay. How does this show up? How does this show up in our organizations? It shows up that I want to volunteer. I want to volunteer the way I want to volunteer with my friends. I want to volunteer in shorts at the concerts, and sandals and jeans. I don't want to wear I want it my way. I want to work for you, but I want to work for you 37 hours a week, and I want to work from home half the time. I want to donate to you, but I want to donate through PayPal. I want you to withdraw it from PayPal, and I want to see your 990s, and I only want to give you $300 a year, but I still want to see your 990s. It's all about the way I want to customize stuff. And to the extent you can accommodate this, you will thrive. To the extent you can't, and there are going to be ridiculous questions, ridiculous stuff you can't do. I get that. But if you can accommodate, it's better. Now, I get around the country a lot, as you might expect. When I'm in cities the night before a speaking engagement, or I have a 2 or 3 day training thing, or I'm teaching a class, I will often go to one of your performances if there's a performance when I'm in town. And I'm always amazed at how much the chorus and performing orchestras in the country have accommodated, have changed, have moved, have morphed, have combined stuff. It's fun to watch. Well, do more and do it faster, because the demands are rapidly changing to, again, as much customization as it can. And again, if you want to customize to accommodate one donor who's 25, he or she brings 50 people with them. All right, or one volunteer, they may bring 75 people with them, because they bring a network. They bring a network of people. They think of themselves, and I've interviewed hundreds of these young people, they think of themselves as a node on a network. I'm me, and I'm important as me, and I can help you as me, but then I get all my friends too. Okay? And so, by the way, we talked about this back in the last session. The harder a question, the harder a problem you give to a 28-year-old, the more likely they are to instantly reach out to all their friends and say, here's the problem I've been given at work, you have any ideas? Which educates their friends about your organization. Okay? It isn't that I've got to go find the encyclopedia at the library and look up this. Right? It's boom, I'm going to go to all my friends and say, what do you think about this? This is my solution. Or their friends from high school, who they still keep in touch with, all of. Or their friends from college, different group. Right? And so, very, very important. Work-life balance. Huh. Boomers, live to work. Everybody else, work to live. And this plays out in some very, very, very interesting ways. Let's assume, Linda, just for the sake of this is fun. I'm not going to hurt you. I really won't. Linda is, let's pick on 28. You're 28 for this, okay? Great. It works, right. It's not going to last, but enjoy it. And she's worked for our organization for 3 or 4 years. She's a good worker. Maybe she does marketing, maybe she does public relations, whatever. Doesn't matter. She comes to me, and I'm the executive director, and she says, I can't do the 60-hour-a-week thing. I have this stuff that I want to be involved in very, very much, and I need to cut back my hours. Okay. What most of us as boomers are thinking in this conversation is, why don't you care about what's important? And sometimes we're stupid enough to say that to her. Okay? And I hear people all the time, they write me all the time, these young people don't care about our mission. And I say, Linda doesn't care about our mission. Linda took a pay cut to come here. Linda could make more in the for-profit world. Obviously, she cares about our mission. Be quiet. Okay? And not only does she care about her mission, but the fact that she wants some work-life balance, she wants to go do something that is more important to her than our mission, which is already most important. By the way, your mission is your most important asset, your most valuable asset that you've got. People come to work in nonprofits for 2 reasons. Your mission and the way we treat each other. That's it. It ain't about the money, you know. So anyway, so Linda wants to go do what? She wants to be with her family. She wants to work with her place of worship. She wants to go work with Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or pet rescue or the environment, whatever, something that's here for her. And when I criticize her and say, you don't care, I'm hitting her where it hurts the worst. And then I leave the room and she walks around all these people and says, Peter is directly descended from Attila the Hun. And she's right. And she's right, okay? We don't need to do this. She is obviously committed to our mission because she's here, okay? We do 2 things when we do that. A, we're bad managers. And B, we identify ourselves as boomers who identify work with place. When we first started working for the first 8 to 10 to 15 years of our work life, we had to go to work because we couldn't bring work home on our laptop. Work was always about place. She may be saying, I just don't want to be here 60 hours a week. I'd like to work 60, but I want to work it on my schedule. Oh, my God. That's a me work. That's a me branding thing, okay? So here's the rules on work-life balance, which is the big gorilla, I said, between people about intergenerational conflict. First rule, when Linda says, I want to go do this thing, your answer must always be good for you. Good for you. You found something you're passionate about, good for you. We love the fact you work here, and good for you that you can find that thing that really, really resonates with you. And she may very well say, I still love the symphony, or I still love the chorus, I still want to be involved, but I got to do this. Not good for you. That's the first rule. Second rule. So first rule is all work-life balance decisions are right. All of them. Don't ever judge somebody's work-life balance decision. Second rule, not all work-life balance decisions are right for your organization. So you may have to say, good for you, but we have to change your job. Good for you, we have to pay you less. Good for you, can you be a volunteer and go, or go, whatever. But you have to protect the mission of the organization first. But don't diss her because she decided that something's important to her. Right? You got to work with the other people that she leaves behind if she has to leave. Right? So it's, okay. These are really, really important. And again, many of you in the room who are my age or older have recognized this in your lives later than the people that are younger. And I've talked, again, 1,000 people born between 1981 and 1991, and they all pretty much say the same thing. I love my parents. I don't want to be them. My parents are great. They were great parents. I don't want to be them. I don't want to spend all my life wrapped up in work. Work's important, but live to work? No. Work to live. Okay. What can you do now? Well, lots of stuff. And these are 6 that I sort of categorize them all in. First is, when you do your strategic plan or do your next fund drive or do your next season that you plan, not next season, but the season, however many years out you plan out, think generationally in that. Make sure that you have access points to what you're doing, particularly if you target marketing by generation, that's very important. If I want to have donors who are under 35, I better have the ability to accept credit cards and PayPal on my website. And if I don't, I'm not going to get those people. Done. Okay. Oh, one thing about technological stereotyping. The first person I ever saw who had a Kindle. Everybody know what a Kindle is? Amazon's electronic reader? Okay. 2 days after Kindle came out. 2 days. I am at a Volunteers of America annual conference in New Orleans. We'd all come back from doing a day of work in the community. There's this big dinner for the speakers and the person they're going to honor, sitting next to me at the table, who had volunteered for VOA for 75 years. He was 94 years old, and his name was George, and he was so great. I sat next to him, I said, George, I'm really, really proud to meet you. Congratulations on your award. Tell me how your 75 years with VOA started. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. I want to show you this. And he pulls this Kindle out of his thing, and he says, this is sweet. Right. Target by generation, if you can. Plan by generation, if you can. Think those things through. Think of those motivators when you do your planning. Then between generations, remember to mentor and discuss. And there's a sequence to do this. You start funny. Then you start more serious. Then you get very much down to tax. I've got the sequence. I can email it to you if you want it. Basically, the sequence is something to the effect of, what do we wear to our high school prom? That's funny. Let's show pictures. Let's play music. Let's talk about those kind of things, those kind of stuff. And there's a variety of different ways you can do that. Then let's get serious. What changed your path, generation by generation? So for some of us, my generation, it might have been John Kennedy or Dr. King's assassination. It might have been Man on the Moon. For a lot of people under 25, under 30, it might have been 9/11. Or it might have been some other issue in their life that changed the way that they're, and talk about those events. And then you can get serious about inside the workplace and how we interact with each other and why we behave the way we behave and those kind of things. And how we'd like to volunteer and anyway, stuff like that. But mentor and discuss. And remember that when you think mentoring, don't always think old to young. That older people mentor younger person. Everybody know who Jack Welch is? Who's Jack Welch? See, everybody says Jack Welch is GE. Isn't that amazing? The co-branding. Jack Welch was the CEO of GE for many years, and in the 90s was thought of as the best CEO in America. Little personal issues here and there Jack had, but as a CEO, pretty hot. His story takes place in the dark ages of the internet, okay, 1994, 1995. Jack is coming back from the CEO roundtable, top 50, now I think it's actually 75, those days, top 50 CEOs of the biggest 50 companies in the country. He's walking down the street in New York, and one of his friends, who's one of the other CEOs, says, Jack, let's go out and have dinner. And Jack says, no, I got to go meet my mentor. And the guy stops him. I heard this guy speak. Okay, he tells the story. He says, your mentor, you mean you're the person you're mentoring? And Jack goes, no, I got a mentor. Who is it? 25-year-old. Come on. He goes, you have a 25-year-old mentor? You're the one who's supposed to be. No. Well, this is what happened. Okay, so who can I pick on now? What's your name? Katherine. Okay, Katherine, you are 25. Enjoy this. Okay, great. Okay, and you are doing research on a computer, so type. Go. Okay, Jack walks down the hall, and don't stop, okay? Because I'm paying you. I'm Jack Welch. I paid you hard. Jack Welch fires the lowest 10% of every employee every year, so type fast, okay? All right, Jack is wandering around, doing management by wandering around. He wanders around the hall, and he sees this 25-year-old woman who is typing, and she's working on a computer, and Jack goes, what are you doing? And she's looking at the computer, and she says, I'm looking for aluminum for our engine parts. And what are you doing it on? Well, I'm doing it on this through the computer. And she says, yeah, there's a thing called CompuServe. At which point she turns around and sees it's Jack. It's Jack Welch. And she thinks she's going to keep going and sits down. Okay, so we're done. And he sat down, and she had a heart attack, and listened for an hour. And then he said, okay, you and I are getting together for an hour every week until I say we stop. Okay, And 2 weeks later, the missive came out of Welch's, everybody over $75,000 a year had to find a 25-year-old mentor to talk about this thing called the internet. And GE got a 3-year running head start on every other American company in terms of customer service, online presence, and the ability to be wired as a company. Because Jack, the smartest guy in America, okay, and it was a guy thing, right, listened to a 25-year-old woman who he never met. Okay. Mentor both ways. Age down. Age discrimination is a crime. Do not age discriminate, okay? But think about going and recruiting younger board members. Think about going and finding younger volunteers. And you find them by looking where they are, okay? Which is not at the Senior Citizen Center unless they're volunteering there, okay? So, go and look and think about that because you want to be representative of your community. You want to be culturally diverse. Culturally diverse by age is also important. Okay? And again, as I said before, you don't have a 30-year-old or a 32-year-old on your board. No peer is going to say to the rest of your board, we need this technology thing. It's got to be a peer. It can't be an employee. It's got to be a peer. And then, of course, wide tech expectations. Tech expectations are some all digital, some all paper, some all on the phone. And you've got to meet them all, which is very challenging. You can't just exclude anybody. For example, if all your board people get all of their board materials by email, some of them don't like the fact they have to print them out. Some of them may not have printers. Some of them may not check their email more than once a month. So it's that meeting to expectations thing, okay? And then lastly, ask. If you have friends of a different ethnicity, you would never say, well, here's what you think. You'd ask them, how do you feel about this? Same thing with generational stuff. Ask. Get out there and start talking and start listening. And remember, there's other perspectives than just whichever generation we are. This is, by the way, up and down the age scale. Okay. With that, I got to kick you out because you're supposed to go off and have fun after being all here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And feel free to email me with any questions you may have. Thanks.